Okay, welcome guys to this week's video. This week I'm addressing a topic that you have all requested. A lot of you wrote in to me asking for me to do a video to talk about how we can heal trauma, how we can heal our childhood trauma and the trauma that we're still carrying into our lives today. So it's not an easy topic, but it's a really, really important one. It's important because I think most of us are carrying some kind of unresolved trauma, and it is impacting how we are able to show up in our lives today, how we are able to relate to ourselves, how we're able to relate to each other. And so it's important because it's getting in the way. It's getting in the way of us being able to really be our true selves, and to really let in the goodness that life has to offer us. So let me begin by first talking about what is trauma. And I think it's important for me to say this is my view of it, and from my studies and the way that I work with trauma. It's important to know that a lot of people have very different perceptions around it. So what I'm speaking about in this video is really just my perception of it. But for me, trauma has to sit in two different camps. The same, but in two different camps. One is of the mind and one is of the body. Trauma is something that happens to us either in childhood or in current time or in adult life that creates some kind of vibrational shock in the body, some kind of vibrational experience that is a negative experience in the body. That's what happens in the body. Whether it's fear, whether it's panic, whether it's unsafety, whether it's a feeling like you're going to die, it creates a kind of vibration in the body that has a real negative weight to it. And then what happens is that we then create a story around it. Our mind creates a story around it of what we make that mean. So in childhood, if we experience a negative experience and that vibration happens in the body, then our mind kicks in almost simultaneously and creates some kind of meaning around it. It's our way of trying to have some sense of control around what's happening to us. So the mind kicks in and creates a story around what is happening. A story that we begin to identify with. This is happening because I'm bad. This is happening because life is not safe. This is happening because I'm not lovable. There is an experience that happens in the body, and then there is an experience that happens in the mind. And if we are not given the time and the space to process and unpack these experiences that we've just had, we will carry them. We will carry them stored in the body like a sense memory that just goes over and over and over again, reliving the same feeling in the body. And we will identify with the story that was planted in that moment, as if it is real and true. In that moment in time in childhood, we told ourselves that the world is not a safe space. And therefore, as we grow up, the world occurs to us repeatedly that it is not a safe space. An amazing teacher, physician, Dr. Ngaba Marte, he specializes in trauma. Some of you may know who he is. If you don't, you should check him out. He's a really powerful teacher. He specializes in childhood trauma. And he always says, trauma is not what happens around the child, but what is happening inside the child while the outside experience is happening. Trauma is what occurs with what is happening inside the child and inside the child's mind. Is how the child is processing what is happening outside of them. That is what creates the trauma. And then added on to that, once that experience has happened inside the child and then inside the mind, if that child has no one to talk to about it, if that child is never asked how they feel, are they okay, if they don't have anyone to unpack it with, and when I say unpack it, I mean process it, saying, this is how I feel, this is what's going on in my body, this is what I've just experienced, this is what I've just seen. If the child doesn't have the opportunity to unpack it in the moment, that becomes something that that child carries until they can unpack it. And this is what's happening for most of us. Most of us are having experiences, negative experiences, and then identifying with stories that we have planted in that moment, and then not processing it. And so we're carrying it. We're carrying it in the body, and we're carrying it in our consciousness, in our mind. And this becomes unresolved trauma. Now, let's take it even further to family trauma. If the mother or the father is carrying unresolved, unpacked experiences, negative experiences in their body, and also belief systems in their mind, it is absolutely just, it will just pass on. They will pass it on to their children in the way that they behave, because that's all they know. Let's take it to generational trauma. Trauma that's happened in grandma or great-grandma's body or great-great-great-grandma. And then the stories that are planted in grandma or great-grandma or great-great-great-grandma's mind, that is something that will just keep, unless it's resolved and healed, it's something that will continually be passed on and passed on and passed on. Now, some of you may find that in your lives today, that you may be the one in your generational ancestry. You may be the one in your ancestral line to heal this. You may be the one that's having to heal your own trauma, but also maybe the trauma for your grandmother or your great-grandmother. I'm going to unpack this a little bit more in a minute, but a lot of the time, what we think we're carrying that is ours may come from our mother or our grandmother or our great-grandmother or our grandfathers. The important thing really is that we're carrying it, and whether we want to heal it. Whether we want to be the ones to heal this here and now, so that we don't pass it on and pass it on and pass it on and pass it on. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how do we begin to heal this so that we don't have to carry it and then we don't have to pass it on. First, before I do that, I think it would be really important to talk about how unresolved trauma impacts our daily life. And I know a lot of you will identify with this. I identify with this too. You know, that is why when someone cuts us off on the street or when we're driving, in a trigger moment, in a millisecond moment, we can feel utter rage. Why? Why such a huge emotional experience happening just because someone drives in front of you? Because in that moment, unresolved trauma, maybe around being cut off, maybe around being controlled, maybe around not being given space, unlocks in the body, and the body releases this vibrational experience, this vibrational memory. And then we experience the way that we see it through the story in our mind. And it's almost like in that moment in the car, we are reliving that trauma, that rage. That's why people can end up having huge fistfights just because they cut each other off in the street. It's not about that moment on the road. It's like both people are reliving something from like 25 years ago in their childhood. That is why so many couples can have enormous fights over the washing up. That is why when someone cuts me off and I'm speaking, I can feel this incredible amount of emotion move through me, because it is exactly like I'm back in my childhood being cut off by my mother. Anything that is unresolved, that is unhealed, both in the body and in the mind, will relive over and over and over again. Now, on a very deep consciousness level, I believe that is a very big part of what we are here for. What our life is for is to take whatever it is that we are carrying, whatever it is that we are experiencing, and keep healing it and healing it and healing it. Because every single time we heal it, we raise the vibration that we live in. We awaken our consciousness a little bit more. That is what I believe human life is for. To travel these journeys so that we continually heal and evolve and heal and evolve and heal and evolve. And I tell you what, if we don't do it in this lifetime, we're probably going to have to come back and do it again. So we're going to have to do it at some point. I really just want you guys to get this, and I want you to get it in a way that you have an aha moment as you're watching this. Because a lot of the time, we don't even know that we're carrying past trauma, and we don't even know that it's reliving over and over and over again. We think that this is just our life, right? We think that this is just it. Like, that man is seriously pissing me off to the point that I want to like smash him. And this is real, right? And so I really want to break this down for you. I have this thing about not being able to use my voice. When I was a little girl, my mother never, ever, ever let me speak. Her emotion, her needs, her anger was always more important than me being able to use my voice. And so whenever I wanted to speak as a child, she would cut me off, cut me off, cut me off. Now, as a child, I was helpless. I was unable to do anything about it because she was an authority figure. Surprise, surprise. Every single relationship I have ever been in my entire lifetime up till now, what do you think triggers me more than anything? When my partner does not allow me to speak. And in the moment, it feels like the most painful, devastating experience. It genuinely feels like, to me, and it feels real, it feels like that person who I thought loved me doesn't care about me at all, is completely untrustworthy, and is someone that I need to get away from as quickly as possible. Now, I have gone through so many relationships, ending them for this reason. I need to find someone that will listen to me, that will let me speak. And then I just end up in the same relationship having exactly the same experience. Now, eventually I had to look and go, maybe it's something in me. Maybe it's not that I just keep finding people who just can't listen. Maybe it's something I'm carrying in me. And that's when I had to start doing much, 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 much deeper work. that was when I started to have to look, what am I carrying that is reliving the same experience over and over and over again? Maybe it isn't just the reality of my life. Maybe it's something that I have not healed in myself, that comes up in me and it feels so real. And I tell you, it feels real because the feeling in my body is real. And the way that I see it in my mind is real. But it's like I'm that 6-year-old girl in the kitchen again with my mum every single time. And so I want to unpack that with you. If you are finding yourself reliving the same arguments or the same pain over and over and over again, different details around you, but the same feeling in your body. Maybe it's a feeling of being disappointed, let down, not enough space for me, no one supports me, feeling trapped, whatever it is. If you are reliving the same experience over and over again, it is probably that there is some unhealed, unresolved trauma inside you that needs healing. Now that's painful to see. It's a courageous thing to see, and it is painful to see. But as soon as we see that, the possibility in that is that we can heal it. And the bigger possibility in that is that our life does not have to continue in this same way forever. And that is exciting. That gives us hope in so many areas. So how do we begin to heal this? First step, to even have that moment. The first step is a fundamental step. We can't heal anything until we see it first. Awareness is the first step to all change. I cannot heal that experience in me that comes up in me when I am not allowed to be given the space to speak until I have that moment when I stop and I go, ooh, maybe this is something I am carrying. So awareness is the absolute first step. We have to be able to take that moment to see it. This is something I'm carrying. And then what? How do we heal this? First, I want to highlight this is not a quick fix. This may take our lifetime. This may be what we use our life for. And that may sound like a big arduous task, but as you really commit to this process of healing, the journey of healing itself becomes such a remarkable thing to live. Because every single time we release, every single time we heal something that we've been carrying that has been getting in the way of us being able to be our true, authentic self in life, every single time we heal a little bit more, we get to experience more freedom, more peace, more love, more life. And so the journey of this itself can be the remarkable part. So I really want to highlight that. This is not going to be something that you're just going to be able to do once and you're done and then I'm fixed, done. I can unpack my bags and live the rest of my life. It's probably not going to be like that. And so change your perception around this. Healing trauma is a step-by-step process, but it's a worthwhile one because at the end of it you get your freedom. So once we get the awareness around what we're carrying, or at least the awareness that we are carrying something that is getting in the way, then we really need to begin the work. I would always recommend being able to have someone to work with when you're healing trauma, because we have to heal on a mind and body level. It's not enough just to get understanding of something. Understanding something does not heal it. Understanding just gives us more knowledge. But understanding is an important part. So it's really important that you work with someone on this, where maybe it's a coach or a therapist, or you work it through with some friends who are really, really committed to the process, all of you together, or you work in a community, or you work in a group. But it is important to have someone to process it with. And I highly recommend you work with this on a mind and body level. Let me give you an example of how trauma can be dissolved in the moment that it occurs, or in the time frame that it occurs. So if a child goes through something that creates trauma, maybe her mother lost her temper, or her mother has a breakdown, and the little girl experiences panic and fear in her body, and a feeling of unsafety, and a feeling like she's not going to survive, and then in her mind she makes the decision that she can't trust anybody ever again. No one is safe. Now, if the parent is conscious enough to spend time with that child and first go, what are you feeling? What's going on for you right now? And allows that child to speak, and allows that child to start to get in touch themselves with what's happening in the body. My body is feeling tight, panicky, my stomach is churning, and I feel like I'm not safe. If the parent is conscious enough to be able to speak it through with the child, and by the way, we can also do this as adults, and I'll go into that more in a minute. If the parent is conscious enough to speak it through with the child and really allow that child to be seen and heard and expressed, and the feelings that they feel is allowed to come through, and the story that they planted is allowed to be shared, all of it gets to be processed. The emotion gets to be felt and released. The story that was planted gets to be unpacked, and then the parent can say, that's not true, you are safe, that was just what happened in the moment, that was mummy, that was not you. If this happens, then the child gets to heal their trauma in the moment. They don't have to carry it forever. Now, this is the process we need to do for ourselves. First step, to be able to see that we're carrying something. And then we have to begin. We have to begin unpacking it. What is it that we're feeling? In the moment that my husband cuts me off, what is it that I'm feeling in my body? I use my journal with this. I'll speak about it in my therapy sessions, or I'll speak about it with my coach. Actually, all three. What is it that I'm feeling? I'm feeling a feeling of being abandoned. I'm feeling a feeling of panic. I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling sadness. I'm feeling heartbreak. I have to start being able to get in touch with the feeling of it. And this is how we heal the part in the body. And then we have to feel the feelings. Am I allowed to have the space to feel my anger? Not because my husband cut me off, but because I was repeatedly cut off as a child. Am I allowed to have the space to feel my abandonment, to feel the devastation that I'm feeling in the body? This is how we release the vibration, how we release the energetic memory in the body. We have to release it by getting it out. It has to come out. Whatever is in has to come out. So we release it through feeling emotion, sadness, anger, grief. Releasing sound. Dynamic meditation can be very powerful, where you're literally releasing the vibration. 5 rhythms dancing can be very powerful. Ecstatic dance, anything kind of that releases any kind of somatic healing where you're releasing the vibration from the body, very, very powerful. You actually have to think about getting the vibration out. And then the healing of the mind, bringing consciousness to it. What was I feeling? What did I make it mean? What did I experience in the moment? I experienced that I'm not important. I experienced that my voice is not allowed to be heard. I experienced that it's not safe for me to speak. Bringing consciousness to our experience, really important. Because releasing it on a vibrational level gets it out of the body, but the consciousness, when we bring consciousness to it, then we get to actually shift how we experience ourselves and how we experience life. When I saw that I felt unimportant, I believed I was unimportant, that is why I am not allowed to have my voice heard. When I really brought consciousness to that, and I was able to see, oh, that is why I always feel like I'm not important. That was a story that was planted in that moment. It helps me to start seeing life in a different way. Maybe it wasn't that I was unimportant. Maybe that's just what I believed in that moment. If you watch the video on compassion before this one, this is one of those moments, bringing understanding to the story, bringing understanding to the pain, and then bringing understanding to the need underneath. The story was that I'm unimportant. The pain was that I felt dismissed. And the need was that I want to be heard. Really bringing compassion to it. You know, my experience nowadays, when I release it from the body, I feel I feel enormous moments of liberation. You know, when we carry this trauma in the body, it affects the way that we live in our life. It actually affects the way we behave. It affects the way our personality is built. And every single time I release something from my past, from my body, and a perception in my mind, I feel like I get to come home a little bit more to myself, to my true self, before the trauma was planted, before the trauma occurred. It's like a coming home process. Ramdas will say, Ramdas, amazing spiritual teacher, we're all just walking each other home. This journey it's not about finding ourselves, it's about coming home to ourselves. So how can we take this away with us? I think for you, if you're watching this and you're feeling identification with anything that I'm saying, or maybe you already know that you're carrying trauma, unresolved trauma, maybe it's yours, maybe it's your mama's, maybe it's how many generations back. I think the most important part first to see is that this is something that we're carrying. It's not who we are. And if we're carrying it and it's not who we are, then we can release it. Then we can heal it. Trauma is something we are carrying. It's not who we are. That's really important. So next steps, get your journals out. Find an experience that you are reliving over and over and over and over again. What is the feelings in your body when you experience it? Write it down. Get it all out. Write it endlessly until it is so clear. Give yourself the freedom to really allow yourself to tap into what you're feeling. And then what is the story? What are you telling yourself all the time, over and over and over again? I would also recommend that if you have a lot of trauma going on for you, then find a coach, find a therapist, find someone that you can really trust that will work with you on a mind and body level, not just in the mind, on a mind-body level, so that you can really start to bring your consciousness to it and then start releasing it from the body. Other really powerful ways I just said earlier, and I'm going to put all the resources underneath this video: a somatic healer, releasing vibration in the body. Plant medicine is really powerful for purging trauma from the body. 5 rhythms dancing, really powerful for moving the vibration in the body while also releasing emotion. Crying, allowing yourself to feel. That's why emotion and feeling feelings is so healing. That's why we feel so good after a really big cry, because we have released weight from the body. Crying, grieving, anger, doing anger work, allowing yourself to feel your anger, not in a way where you're punishing someone else or punishing yourself, but allowing yourself to feel it so that you can release it. These are all really, really powerful ways to start releasing it from the body and from the mind. But I think what I really want to leave you with, and I want to remind you again, trauma is something you're carrying. It's not who you are. So think of it like unpacking a suitcase. The next step, what's the next thing we need to release from the suitcase so it's not so weighty? What kind of healer do I feel drawn to work with to help me release this and bring consciousness to it? Get your journals out. What are the moments in your life that are reliving over and over again that you feel stuck in? That's going to tell you the doorway to where the trauma is for you. So I hope this is helpful. It's not an easy topic. This certainly is not like the final fixed answer for you. This is actually the invitation of the beginning of healing for you. Write in the comments below. I absolutely want to hear you. I want to engage with you. I want to hear what comes up for you around this. Yeah, I wish you really beautiful, powerful healing.